E. Chapter 1. The Fall of a King. Marcus Valenti was more than a man. He was a legend. In the streets of New Haven, his name carried weight, whispered in hushed tones by those who feared him and spoken with reverence by those who owed him their lives. He had built an empire from nothing, rising from a petty hustler to the undisputed ruler of the city's underground. But power, as always, came with a price. For years, Marcus had fought to keep his throne, navigating betrayals, turf wars, and the ever-present threat of law enforcement. Yet the greatest danger had never come from outside forces, it had come from within. Victor DeLuca, his former partner, had once stood beside him, sharing in his victories, plotting their rise together. But greed had poisoned their bond. Victor wanted more. He wanted Marcus's wealth, his influence, his wife, and he was willing to do whatever it took to claim them. Leo Valenti, Marcus's 14-year-old son, had always admired his father. He saw the way Marcus commanded respect, how people feared and revered him. But he also saw the shadows, the enemies lurking, the betrayals waiting to unfold. And, on one fateful night, the shadows struck. It was supposed to be a quiet evening. Marcus had returned home late, exhausted from a meeting with his closest advisors. Leo had been in his room sketching in his notebook when he heard the gunshot. The sound was deafening, shattering the silence of the house. Leo froze, his heart pounding in his chest. He rushed out of his room, his bare feet skidding against the hardwood floor as he ran toward his father's study. The door was ajar. Leo pushed it open, his breath hitching as he took in the scene before him. Marcus lay slumped over his desk, blood pooling beneath him. His eyes were open, staring blankly at the ceiling, as if he had been caught mid-thought. The metallic scent of blood filled the air, mixing with the lingering aroma of Marcus's cigar. Leo's stomach twisted. No. His voice was barely a whisper, a broken plea to a reality he couldn't accept. He stumbled forward, his hands shaking as he reached for his father. Marcus was gone. The world blurred around Leo, his mind struggling to process what had just happened. He barely registered the sound of footsteps behind him, the hurried voices of his mother and the house staff. "Marcus!" Serena's scream cut through the air, raw and filled with anguish. Leo turned, watching as his mother collapsed beside Marcus, her hands pressing against his chest as if she could will him back to life. The police arrived soon after, their presence cold and clinical. They examined the scene, took statements, and within hours the official story was set: a robbery gone wrong. Leo didn't believe it. He saw the way Victor stood at the funeral, his crocodile tears, his comforting hand on Serena. He saw the way Victor's men moved, how they whispered, how they took control of Marcus's businesses with eerie ease. The world believed Victor was a grieving friend. But Leo knew the truth. Chapter 2. The Funeral of Lies. The funeral was a grand spectacle. Marcus Valenti had been a king in the streets, and his farewell was nothing short of royal. The church was packed with mourners, businessmen, politicians, gangsters, and civilians alike. Some came out of respect, others out of fear, and many simply to see who would rise in his place. Leo sat in the front row, his hands clenched into fists, his jaw tight. He barely heard the priest's words, barely registered the sobs of his mother beside him. His mind was elsewhere, focused on the man standing just a few feet away. Victor DeLuca. Victor played his part well. He stood beside Serena, whispering condolences, offering support. He spoke of Marcus as a brother, a man he had loved and respected. The crowd nodded, believing his words. Leo saw through the act. Victor's grief was too polished, too rehearsed. His eyes, though filled with sorrow, held something else, satisfaction. He had won. He had taken everything from Marcus, and now he was positioning himself as the savior of the Valenti family. Leo's stomach churned. As the ceremony continued, Leo scanned the crowd. He recognized faces, men who had once worked for his father, now standing with uncertainty in their eyes. Marcus's empire had been vast, but without its leader it was vulnerable. And Victor was already moving in. After the service, the mourners gathered outside the church, speaking in hushed tones. Leo stood beside his mother, watching as Victor approached. "I know this is hard, kid," Victor said, placing a hand on Leo's shoulder. "Your father was a great man. I'll do everything I can to help you and your mother through this." Leo stiffened. He wanted to scream, to call Victor out for the liar he was, but he knew better. Victor was dangerous, and Leo was just a kid in his eyes. If he wanted justice, he had to be smart. Serena, lost in grief, nodded. "Thank you, Victor. I don't know how we'll get through this without you." Leo's stomach twisted. Victor had fooled everyone. But he wouldn't fool Leo. Chapter 3. The Son Who Knows. Leo had always been observant. His father used to say that he had sharp eyes, the kind that saw things others missed. Marcus had taught him to read people, to watch their movements, their expressions, their words. And now, those lessons were the only thing keeping Leo from drowning in grief. The days after the funeral were a blur. His mother barely left her room, lost in sorrow. The house, once filled with Marcus's presence, felt hollow. The staff moved quietly, avoiding eye contact as if speaking too loudly would shatter what little remained of the Valenti family. But Leo didn't have the luxury of mourning. He watched. Victor was moving fast. At first it was subtle. He visited the house often, always under the guise of checking on Serena. He brought food, spoke in soft tones, reassured her that everything would be okay. Leo saw the way his mother leaned on Victor, how she trusted him. It made Leo sick. Then came the business moves. Marcus's empire had been vast. Clubs, casinos, underground dealings that stretched across the city. And now Victor was slipping into the cracks, taking control piece by piece. Leo overheard conversations, Victor's men speaking in hushed tones about transitions, about new leadership. Marcus's name was fading. Victor was replacing him. Leo clenched his fists. He knew the truth. But knowing wasn't enough. Victor was dangerous. He had fooled the world, manipulated his mother, and was slowly erasing Marcus's legacy. If Leo wanted justice, he had to be smart. He had to gather proof. And most importantly, he had to be patient. Chapter 4. The First Move. Leo had spent days watching, listening, and piecing together the puzzle that was Victor DeLuca's takeover. He knew his father's death wasn't an accident, and he knew Victor was behind it. But knowing wasn't enough. He needed proof. And proof wouldn't come easily. Victor was careful. He had spent years building his reputation as Marcus's closest ally, and now, in the wake of Marcus's death, he was playing the role of protector. He was the grieving friend, the loyal confidant. The man stepping in to ensure Marcus's empire didn't crumble. But Leo saw the truth. Victor wasn't protecting Marcus's legacy. He was dismantling it, piece by piece. Leo had overheard conversations between Victor's men, whispers about new leadership and transitions. He had seen the way Victor moved, how he subtly took control of Marcus's businesses, how he positioned himself as the new ruler of the streets. Leo knew he had to act, but he couldn't just accuse Victor outright. No one would believe him. Not the police, not his mother, not even Marcus's old allies. Victor had fooled them all. Leo needed evidence. And that meant taking risks. Breaking in. Leo had spent enough time around his father's men to know how things worked. He knew where Marcus kept his records, where deals were made, where secrets were buried. And he knew Victor had taken over Marcus's office. That was where the truth would be. Late one night, when the house was quiet and his mother was asleep, Leo slipped out. He moved carefully, his heart pounding as he made his way to the building that had once been his father's headquarters. It was guarded, of course. Victor wasn't stupid. Leo stayed in the shadows, watching the patterns of the guards, waiting for the right moment. Then, when the opportunity came, he moved. He slipped through a side entrance, his breath shallow as he navigated the familiar halls. The office was just ahead. He reached the door, his fingers trembling as he turned the handle. Locked. Of course. Leo cursed under his breath. He hadn't thought that far ahead, but he wasn't about to turn back now. He scanned the area, searching for another way in. His eyes landed on the ventilation shaft above the door. It was small, but he was small too. It was risky. But everything about this was risky. Leo climbed onto a nearby desk, pried open the vent, and pulled himself inside. The metal was cold against his skin as he crawled forward, his body tense with every movement. He reached the end of the shaft, peering down into the office below. Victor's office. Leo took a deep breath, then dropped down. The ledger. The office was eerily quiet. Leo moved quickly, scanning the room for anything that could prove Victor's involvement in Marcus's death. Then he saw it. A ledger sitting on the desk. Leo grabbed it, flipping through the pages. His eyes widened. Transactions. Payments made to unknown parties. And then, a date. The night of Marcus's murder. Leo's heart pounded. This was it. Proof. But before he could process what he had found, he heard footsteps. Someone was coming. Leo's breath hitched. He had to get out. Fast. Chapter 5. The Gathering Storm. Leo barely made it out of Victor's office alive. The moment he heard footsteps approaching, his instincts kicked in. He shoved the ledger into his jacket, scanning the room for an escape. The vent was too high. He wouldn't have time to climb back up. Then he saw it. A window. Without hesitation, Leo sprinted toward it, throwing it open just as the door handle turned. He didn't look back. He didn't wait to see who was coming. He jumped. The drop wasn't far, but he landed hard, pain jolting through his legs. He bit back a curse, forcing himself to move. He had what he needed, proof that Victor had orchestrated his father's murder. Now, he just had to figure out what to do with it. A mother lost. Leo returned home just before dawn, his body aching, his mind racing. He had done it. He had stolen the ledger. He had proof. But as he stepped inside, he froze. His mother was awake. Serena sat in the dimly lit living room, a glass of wine in her hand, her eyes distant. And Victor was with her. Leo's stomach twisted. Victor sat beside her, his hand resting on hers, his voice low and soothing. Leo clenched his fists. His mother had always been strong, always stood beside Marcus. But now she was slipping. Victor had poisoned her mind. Leo knew grief could break people, but this was something else. Serena wasn't just mourning. She was choosing Victor, choosing the man who had stolen everything from them. Leo stepped forward, his voice sharp. "What is he doing here?" Serena looked up, her expression tired. "Leo, don't start." Leo's jaw tightened. "He's the reason Dad is dead." Victor sighed, shaking his head. "Kid, I know you're hurting, but—" "Don't call me kid," Leo snapped. "Don't act like you care." Serena stood, her tone firm. "Leo, enough." Leo stared at her, disbelief washing over him. She wasn't just ignoring the truth. She was defending Victor. Leo's chest tightened. His mother was gone. Not physically, but mentally. Victor had won her over. And now Leo was truly alone. The plan. Leo knew he couldn't rely on his mother. He couldn't convince her. She was too far gone. That meant he had to act alone. He spent the next few days studying the ledger, piecing together the transactions. He found names, people who had been paid off, people who had been involved in Marcus's murder. He had enough to expose Victor. But Victor wasn't just some criminal. He was powerful, connected. Leo couldn't just hand the ledger to the police and expect justice. He had to be smart. He had to be ruthless. Chapter 6. The Betrayal. Leo had spent the past few days preparing. He had the ledger. He had proof. But he had no allies. His mother was lost to Victor's manipulation, and Marcus's old men were either too afraid or too loyal to Victor to question his rise to power. Leo was alone, and that meant he had to be careful. Victor was dangerous. He had orchestrated Marcus's murder, taken control of his empire, and fooled the world into believing he was a grieving friend. Leo couldn't afford to make mistakes. But then he heard something that shattered his restraint. The kiss. Leo had been walking down the hall toward his mother's room when he heard voices. Victor's voice. And his mother's. He froze, his heart pounding. He stepped closer, pressing himself against the wall, listening. Then he heard it. The unmistakable sound of lips meeting. Leo's stomach twisted. He peeked through the slightly open door, his breath catching in his throat. Victor was kissing his mother. And she was kissing him back. Leo's hands clenched into fists, his nails digging into his palms. But it wasn't just the kiss. It was what came next. Serena pulled away, smiling softly. "I'm sure Marcus wouldn't have a problem with us being happy." Leo saw red. He shoved the door open, his voice sharp and filled with fury. "Are you insane?" Serena gasped, stepping back. Victor turned, his expression unreadable. Leo stormed into the room, his body trembling with rage. "You think Dad would be okay with this? You think he'd want to die knowing his own best friend would betray him?" Serena's face hardened. "Leo, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly," Leo spat. "Victor killed Dad, and now you're letting him take everything from us." Victor sighed, stepping forward. "Kid?" "Don't call me that," Leo snapped. "You're a liar, a murderer, and I swear I will make sure everyone knows it." Serena's eyes filled with anger. "Leo, stop this nonsense. Victor has been here for us." Leo laughed bitterly. "Yeah, because he planned this from the start." Victor's expression darkened. "You should be careful, Leo." Leo met his gaze, unafraid. "You should be scared." And with that he turned and walked out. He had wasted enough time. It was time to end Victor. The announcement. Leo barely slept that night. His mind raced, replaying the scene over and over. His mother had kissed Victor. She had defended him. She had chosen him. Leo had always known Victor was manipulative, but he never thought his mother would fall so completely under his spell. The next morning, Leo sat at the breakfast table, staring at the untouched plate of food in front of him. He had no appetite. Serena walked in, her expression calm, as if nothing had happened the night before. Victor followed. Leo's grip tightened around his fork. Serena sat across from him, folding her hands neatly on the table. "Leo, we need to talk." Leo didn't respond. She sighed. "I know you're upset, but you need to understand. Victor has been here for me. For us. He's helped keep everything together." Leo scoffed. "Yeah. By stealing everything Dad built." Serena's lips pressed into a thin line. "That's not true." Leo looked at her, his eyes burning with anger. "You really believe that?" Serena hesitated. Then she took a deep breath. "There's something else," she said. Leo narrowed his eyes. Serena glanced at Victor, then back at Leo. "We're getting engaged." The words hit Leo like a punch to the gut. His chair scraped against the floor as he stood abruptly. "You're what?" Serena frowned. "Leo, don't make this harder than it needs to be." Leo's chest tightened. "You're marrying the man who killed Dad." Serena's expression hardened. "Enough with these accusations. Victor had nothing to do with Marcus's death." Leo laughed bitterly. "You really believe that?" Victor finally spoke, his voice calm. "Leo, I know this is difficult for you." Leo turned on him, his fists clenched. "Shut up. You don't get to talk to me like you care." Victor sighed. "I do care. About you. About your mother." Leo's rage boiled over. "You care about power, about taking everything Dad had, and now you've got her fooled too." Serena stood, her voice sharp. "Leo, stop." Leo turned to her, his eyes filled with betrayal. "Dad loved you. He trusted you. And now you're throwing all of that away for him?" Serena's expression faltered for a moment. But then she straightened. Marcus is gone, and I need to move forward. Leo shook his head, disgusted. You're not moving forward. You're selling out. Victor stepped forward. Leo, I don't want us to be enemies. Leo glared at him. We already are. Victor sighed. I was hoping you'd come around. Leo's jaw tightened. I never will. Serena's eyes filled with frustration. Leo, you need to accept this. Leo stared at her, his heart breaking. She was gone. Not physically, but mentally. Victor had won her over. And now Leo was truly alone. The decision. Leo left the house that day with one goal in mind. Victor had taken everything from him. His father, his family, his legacy. Leo wasn't going to let him win. He had the ledger. He had proof. And now, he had nothing left to lose. It was time to end Victor. Chapter 7. The Truth Unveiled. The weight of betrayal. Leo had never felt more alone. His mother had chosen Victor. She had chosen the man who had orchestrated his father's murder, stolen his empire, and manipulated her into believing he was their savior. Leo had spent days trying to convince her, trying to make her see the truth. But she refused. She was lost. And now, Leo had only one option left. He had to expose Victor. But he had to do it carefully. Victor was powerful. He had connections, police, politicians, men who would kill for him without hesitation. Leo couldn't just walk into a police station and hand over the ledger. No one would believe him. Victor had spent years building his reputation as Marcus's closest ally. Leo was just a kid. But he wasn't stupid, and he wasn't afraid. The plan. Leo spent the next few nights studying the ledger, piecing together the transactions. He found names, people who had been paid off, people who had been involved in Marcus's murder. He had enough to destroy Victor. But he needed to be smart. If Victor found out what Leo was planning, he wouldn't hesitate to eliminate him. Leo had seen it before. Men who crossed Victor disappearing overnight, their bodies found in alleyways or never found at all. Leo had to move carefully. He needed allies. But who could he trust? Marcus's old men were either too afraid or too loyal to Victor. The police were corrupt. Leo had no one. Except there was one person. The journalist. Leo remembered his father mentioning a journalist once, a woman named Elena Cruz. She had spent years investigating the city's underground, exposing corruption, taking down powerful criminals. Marcus had respected her, and she had hated Victor. Leo knew she was his best chance. But reaching her wouldn't be easy. Victor had eyes everywhere. Leo had to be careful. He spent hours researching, finding out where Elena worked, where she lived. Then, late one night, he made his move. The meeting. Leo stood outside Elena's apartment, his heart pounding. He had never done anything like this before. But he had no choice. He knocked. Silence. Then footsteps. The door opened slightly, a chain still locking it in place. Elena stared at him, her eyes sharp. Who are you? Leo swallowed. I need to talk to you. Elena narrowed her eyes. About what? Leo took a deep breath. Victor DeLuca. Elena's expression changed. She unhooked the chain and opened the door. Come in. Leo stepped inside, his hands shaking. Elena crossed her arms. Start talking. Leo pulled out the ledger. This proves Victor killed my father. Elena's eyes widened. She took the ledger, flipping through the pages. Her face paled. This is... Leo nodded. Proof. Elena looked at him. You know what happens if Victor finds out you have this? Leo met her gaze. Yeah. Elena sighed. You're brave, kid. But this is dangerous. Leo clenched his fists. I don't care. Elena studied him for a moment. Then she nodded. I'll help you. The exposure. Elena worked fast. She contacted sources, verified the transactions, gathered additional evidence. Then, she published the story. It was everywhere. Victor DeLuca, the betrayal of Marcus Valenti. Leo watched as the city erupted. Victor's men turned on him. The police launched an investigation. Marcus's old allies finally saw the truth. Victor was finished, or so Leo thought. The last stand. Leo was walking home when he felt it. The presence. Someone was following him. He turned a corner, quickening his pace. Then, a hand grabbed him. Leo struggled, but the grip was strong. He was shoved into a car. And then, darkness. The confrontation. Leo woke up in a warehouse. Victor stood before him. His expression was calm. Too calm. You really thought you could win? Victor asked. Leo glared at him. I did win. Victor chuckled. You're just a kid. Leo smirked. A kid who destroyed you. Victor's eyes darkened. You don't understand how this world works. Leo leaned forward. I understand perfectly. Victor sighed. You could have had a good life. But you chose war. Leo's jaw tightened. You killed my father. Victor shrugged. He was in my way. Leo's blood boiled. Victor stepped closer. You should have stayed quiet. Leo met his gaze. You should have killed me when you had the chance. Victor frowned. Then, gunshots. The warehouse doors burst open. Elena had called the police. Victor's men scattered. Leo stood, his heart pounding. Victor stared at him. Then he ran. But Leo wasn't letting him escape. The end of Victor. Leo chased Victor through the warehouse. Victor grabbed a gun, turning to fire. Leo ducked, grabbing a metal pipe. He swung. The gun flew from Victor's hand. Victor stumbled back. Leo stepped forward. This is for my father. And then... Leo struck. Victor fell. The police swarmed in. It was over. The aftermath. Victor was arrested. His empire crumbled. Leo stood where his father once did, not as a gangster, but as a guardian of his father's legacy. He had won, and the city would never forget.